Immediately, right now, we have got to defeat Donald Trump. And we have got to elect Hillary Clinton and Tim Kaine. Brothers and sisters, this is the real world.
Before Bernie Sanders gets on stadium to stadium to stadium all across the United States telling people to go vote for Joe Biden, there's a story in Politico that I found to be absolutely heartbreaking in a way. Heartbreaking for his supporters, heartbreaking to some degree for him in the degree that he was shocked, that I'm shocked that he was shocked. Missed opportunity, and gets honestly to the heart of what I've been saying for years when I've been pointing out this is a severe weakness in the way that Sanders is running this race. Politico did a story that's going behind the scenes, talking to various people in the various campaigns. In the campaign. I want you to listen to, or I want you to hear some of this, because some of this is mind-blowing. Let's start at the top. Right here. What have I been saying the entire race? Sanders' unwillingness to go for Biden's jugular is one of the decisions the campaign aides were wrestling with since exiting the primary. Knocking out Biden was job number one, and even when he was down, no one went for the knockout blow. That's a problem. It gets even worse. He was hobbling his aides. Sanders was hobbling his aides. Instead of allowing his aides to go out and give opposition research, Sanders was not allowing them to do that. So his surrogates could only go out there and give, talking points. Think about that. The communications people, your surrogates, that's their job. Their job is to go out there and be your soldiers, to be your weapons, to be your swords. So you can stand there and be virtuous. So you can stand there, you can talk about this and you can talk about that and everything else. But ultimately, your surrogates are pushing narratives, media narratives. They're trying to get certain stories in the media, all of that stuff. That's their job. And Sanders is telling his campaign or disallowing them from doing that. Here's another part. What did I argue? I said you need to argue that Joe Biden is unelectable. And you need to make that argument not immediately now, but going back months ago. He's unelectable. He's unelectable. He's unelectable. Look at him. Look at him. He can't stand up to the onslaught. Hillary Clinton lost. Al Gore lost. John Kerry lost. This guy is just the same creature that lost those other races. I understand that you believe that I might be a risky prospect, but I am telling you, look at what actually happened. Obama was a radical in that race. Obama won. I am a radical in this race. I will most likely win. I match up better with Trump. I bring in more independents, and the rest of the party will back me. The same is not true for Joe Biden. How many octogenarians or septuagenarians are you going to have knocking on doors with their walkers? I don't think all that many. I guess my point is, you can deride Joe Biden in a particular way that's not offensive, that gets across that he's unelectable. And everything that would have taken place in the context of that race after that, where Joe Biden would have had a hiccup, a mental glitch, all of that stuff would have been added in the context of that you just created. Think back for the moment. Think back to your presidential political history. Obama versus Mitt Romney. What does Obama do? Obama makes the argument that Mitt Romney is effectively Scrooge McDuck, and he's swimming in money. Just everything that Romney said up to that point that fit in any way near that level got sucked away in that black hole of Mitt Romney is Scrooge McDuck. Mitt Romney is the guy that fired you. Mitt Romney is the guy that got you to build the stage. He stood on it, fired you, got off. They paid you pennies in order to take the stage down. That's who Mitt Romney is. So when Mitt Romney comes out and they had a video of Mitt Romney saying, 48% of the world are takers, they're just useless eaters, it fits into the context that Obama had already made. When Romney comes out and gives a speech, corporations are people too, my friends, it fits into the context of who Romney was. I'm saying the same thing is true for Joe Biden. If you're arguing that Al Gore lost, John Kerry lost, Hillary Clinton lost, and all of these people are just creatures of the party, just like Joe Biden, why do you think he would do any different? That's an argument. That's an argument that was successful at the doorstop. That's an argument that the candidate should be making. But again, he couldn't bring himself to make that argument. He's buddies with Joe Biden, and he doesn't want to ruffle the feathers of Hillary Clinton, so he just doesn't say anything. Don't tell me he was cheated. Just don't. I'm sorry, don't. I agree with you that the entire party apparatus lined up against him, the entire media apparatus lined up against him, but we knew that going in. He should have known that going in. It should have been an assumption that everybody who's not named Sanders is against Sanders. I don't understand, like there's a certain level of naivety associated with this campaign. It's just mind-blowing. It's almost as if he didn't want to win. I mean, maybe those people who say that are right. At the very least, if you're in a game of power, the fact that he's your buddy matters more. It's just shocking to me. Like, I don't have the faculty to process that. You're trying to get elected, and it's like, he's my buddy, I don't want to hit him. Here's another one. He needed to spend more time in South Carolina. He wanted the black vote. What did Nancy Pelosi do? Nancy Pelosi held the impeachment articles until the last minute, making it so that Sanders and Warren, two people who she didn't want to win, were stuck in the Senate during the times that they needed to be on the campaign trail. Sanders particularly, because Sanders wanted to be in South Carolina in order to be face-to-face in order to try to get some of the black vote. Meaning that Pelosi and that plan of ultimately withholding the impeachment articles for the best political effect in regards to the political race drew blood on that. She was more successful on that. Now, the question is, we don't know the level of success because we don't have the comparisons where he went there versus he didn't. But it did not help his cause. Here's another point. He was hurt by Warren. And that's the part that shocked me. And that part didn't shock me. What shocked me was that he still came to the conclusion that Warren was on his side, or at the very least functioning for the left. And that wasn't the case at all. And when he realized that, not only was he hurt by it, he came to the conclusion of wondering whether or not she was indeed an ideological actor. He says he questioned her progressivism. Why? Warren is a political actor. Warren was a political actor in 2016. She didn't back you in 2016. She was getting political concessions from the Democratic Party in order to back the Democratic establishment. Why did you think this was going to be different in this race? Maybe he thought because she was grifting for votes and grifting for cash and grifting for support and grifting for people to knock on doors from the left, that she was somehow going to actually back the priorities and back the left, especially the candidate that the left chose. Listen to this. Around the same time that Biden was consolidating moderates behind him, Sanders attempted to bring the progressive wing of the party fully behind him. He talked to Warren over the phone multiple times, and she dropped out on after Super Tuesday. Side note, Warren, who was broke, wasn't going to win a state, wasn't going to win her own state, stayed in the race using a super PAC, something that she said she would never do, something that she said that the other opponents in the race were horrible for doing. She used a super PAC to keep her in the race in order to what? Attack Sanders and split the vote. Now, I know a lot of people think, oh, that's just a bug. I've argued that's a feature. That's something that is necessary for Joe Biden to be able to win. Otherwise, Sanders consolidates the vote total behind him. And there are like 4 other states in Super Tuesday that he wouldn't necessarily, that Joe Biden might not necessarily win. Like, it changes the fundamental character of the race had Warren dropped out and endorsed Sanders, something that he would have done in a heartbeat. He wouldn't have thought twice about. Sanders tried to get Yang and Steyer. Neither one of them backed him. He was deeply disappointed that she didn't endorse him afterwards, said a person familiar with the talks with Warren. It made him question her progressivism. And here's another part. Now, maybe that was temporary, but I think that he was hurt because he would have endorsed her in a heartbeat had roles been reversed. And not just not endorse him. Listen to what she's saying about him. I mean, this stuff is mind-blowing. She attacked him far, far more than she ever went after Joe Biden. And this was the guy who she was grifting for vote. Like, this was the guy she was trying to steal his voters by acting like him. And this is what she's saying.
Particularly worried about what happened in the attacks on members of the Culinary Union, particularly on the women in leadership. The whole notion of publishing their personal addresses, their phone numbers, and then making very aggressive threats against their own safety and the safety of their families. That is not how we build an inclusive Democratic Party, and it is not how we build Donald Trump. We do not build on a foundation of hate.
I wonder.
We do not build on a foundation of hate. And who is she talking about? Bernie Sanders supporters. And what is she saying? Bernie Sanders is uniquely responsible for random assholes on Twitter that's being abusive, and his supporters are uniquely abusive. They're uniquely bad in the way that they back Sanders. Now, all of the supporters of all of the candidates have their onerous versions or onerous people who back those candidates. Sanders, there's nothing unique about Sanders. But Warren jumped in on the mantra of the party and on the mantra of the media that went with this notion that these guys are bad. And again, let's not forget that this is based on that Warren is grifting for votes and support and money from the very people that she is now saying are uniquely bad and similar to Trump, building on a foundation of hate. Here's her again. Warren jumps out the race. Now, at this point, Sanders probably thinks Warren may endorse him. He asks for her endorsement. Instead, she gives loving words to Joe Biden and says this. Now, her supporters are shocked by this, believe it or not. They thought, well, if I back Warren, backing Warren is similar to backing Sanders, and she's going to back... Yeah, no. I don't know what race you guys were watching. She was hurting him the entirety of this race.
Particularly, it's a particular problem with Sanders' supporters.
It is. I mean, and it just is. It's just a factual question.
Just so we're clear, a factual question. I don't know what that means. Somebody asked the question. Is it a fact that they asked the question? Yes. That says nothing about the topic at hand. Is that a dodge? Is that a Freudian slip where you know you're full of shit? What is that? I don't know what that is, but let's let her finish. Attacking people who, again, months ago, she grifted for votes, cash, support, and volunteers.
And it is. And that's something I think that
Have you ever talked with Senator Sanders about that?
I have.
What was that conversation like?
It was short. But yeah, we've talked about it. But I think it's a real problem.
Does he not share your view that he's responsible for the behavior of his supporters?
You know, I shouldn't speak for him. Mm-hmm. It's something he should speak for himself on. But I do think it's something that we need to reckon with in our political discourse in particular, because this is what politics is about, is to get out and put your ideas out there. And people choose sides, people vote, people say, I'm holding a sign for her, I'm holding a sign for him. That is part of what we do. But what underlies that is a fundamental human decency and respect for each other. An understanding that nobody tries to put somebody's family at risk or somebody personally at risk because they disagree with you on the politics of it, because they see the policy different, because they don't support your candidate and they support some other candidate. No. And if we follow that same kind of politics of division that Donald Trump follows, that notion of, he draws strength from tearing people apart, from...
Just so we're clear, she's talking about random people on Twitter and is tying that to Sanders and is tying that to Trump, saying, A, Bernie Sanders supporters, foundation of hate. In this case, similar to Trump voters, similar to Trump supporters. I mean, again, grifting for vote. This woman lied throughout this race, disingenuous to the core throughout this race. She told her supporters that I am not on board for a super PAC. I'm against super PAC. I'm against dark money. Somebody raises their hand and says, wait a minute, you weren't against dark money before. No, I'm not. I wasn't. You're not going to be against dark money later. No, I'm not. Then why are you against dark money now? Again, why? It's not ideological. That's my point. It's political. I need to stand beside Sanders as a one-to-one. I'm somewhat credible as a lefty. Hillary Clinton is backing me behind the scenes, just like she backed me, or just like I was backing her back then. She's probably going to have all sorts of cash for me when I get out the race. She has a certain hatred for Sanders. And whatever the political advice, whatever the opinion, Bill Clinton telling Tom Perez, don't let Bernie folks take the, don't let Sanders take the party. Tom Perez did his job diligently. But if Bill Clinton is telling Tom Perez that, what do you think Hillary Clinton is telling Elizabeth Warren? Or what do you think Hillary Clinton's intentions regarding Elizabeth Warren are? What do you think those conversations behind the scenes look like? This is kind of my point when I'm saying I don't know why you're shocked that Warren took this disposition. She is a political actor. And she's a political actor that if she believes the party is going to somehow succeed in this process, she's going to back the party. She's going to try to get political concessions. That has nothing to do with the politics of this or the ideology of this and the way that Sanders behaves. He was dumbfounded by this. He's looking for an endorsement. She gets out the race and slaps him, just attacks him, bam, hits him. Whereas Joe Biden, who's supposedly the person she's against, because he's, again, the same creature that was in Washington, nothing but nice words to say about him. She's not a bug, she's a feature, Sanders. And your inability to attack, your inability to allow your surrogates to be your surrogates, you're putting a knife in your surrogates. And then as I read this article and I'm reading that you're hobbling and preventing your surrogates from doing their jobs. Oh man, there's another part to this that needs to be brought up too. Poor leadership. So they didn't have the organization in the various states. Meaning they didn't necessarily have people on the ground in the various states to insufficient qualities. Right here. At his meeting, top senior aide a few months before, senior advisor Chuck Rocha raised concerns about the fact that they lacked precinct captains for hundreds of caucus sites in the state. Some staffers felt that was partly due to the fact that they required captains to go through in-depth training. On the day of the Iowa caucuses, while the vast majority of caucus sites were covered, the campaign had no precinct captain in some rural and several in rural areas, said several aides. Oh, that sucks. Because then you get into this notion of, is that why Buttigieg was able to get? Buttigieg didn't win in Iowa. Buttigieg got less votes. The person with less votes don't win. They created and conjured up state delegate equivalents where they were giving different values to different areas in the state. It's just baloney. But whatever that is, whatever that number is, the fact that they didn't have that support in Iowa, is it possible that they lost, like from the standpoint of even state delegate equivalents, like just having that additional support equals 3 additional equivalents? And look, I know they cheated in Iowa, so don't misunderstand me. But I'm just making the point that not having that infrastructure there potentially might have allowed Buttigieg to get an extra over the top, in regards to state delegate equivalents. One of the other arguments is that they didn't have people on mainstream media enough. Well, here's the thing. MSNBC and CNN were utterly belligerent. MSNBC is the network, after all, that had on Apex Pervert and Hillary Clinton surrogate Harvey stand over there while masturbating to this plant Weinstein on in order to say that Bernie Sanders was sexist. You had another woman on MSNBC saying Bernie Sanders made her skin crawl, that the guy was anti-woman. You had another woman on MSNBC saying that if you're backing Sanders over Warren, that you're fundamentally sexist because Warren basically is Sanders with a vagina and better policies. Like, this is the nonsense that they were saying. So yes, send somebody on there who's adversarial and spirited, but the problem is Sanders has already hobbled the person in regards to their ability to do opposition research. Like, Like, this is phenomenal. Utterly phenomenal. I'm not going to go through all of this, but I'll put the article at the bottom. Like it feels like, think for the moment if Obama was running this race. And in Obama running this race, Obama, with all the tools at his disposal, what would he have done differently? And you already know that answer. He would have put a knife. He would have put a large knife into Joe Biden. Wouldn't have thought twice about it because Obama wanted to be president. It's such a difference in the way that these guys are running the race. Delia, I don't believe Sanders was ever taught that the people that can hurt you the most are the ones that are closest to you. Yes, Delia. I wonder, does he know it now? Like, share, and subscribe. Thanks all.